Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. Low-income families still have time to sign up for advanced child tax credit payments. COVID tax tip 2021-127, August 30th, 2021. It's not too late for low-income families to sign up for advanced child tax credit payments. There's a link to advanced child tax credit payments here. Let me give a quick recap on what those are. This is something that's new, but the IRS has put a lot of time into putting out information on it, so you've probably heard of it. So here's a quick recap. The child tax credit, usually something that you would get when you file the tax return, a credit on the actual tax return, but they have made an advanced portion to it. So in other words, for tax year 2021, usually you would get the child tax credit when you file the tax return at the following year by April 15th of 2022, but they have this advanced portion, so they're sending out advanced payments during 2021. So how would they do that? The way they basically did it is they said, we're going to take the child tax credit itself, we're going to increase it so they have a larger amount, and then we're going to make more of it to be refundable, meaning that even if your tax liability goes below zero, you'd still get the benefit from the child tax credit. And then they, in essence, took half of the child tax credit that you would get when you file the tax return for 2021 tax year by April 15th of 2022, and they tried to allocate it out over the tax year 2021, basically in a prepayment of the credit that they anticipate that you will get when you file the tax return in 2022. Now, obviously, they don't know exactly what the credit is because you haven't filed the tax return. And so how would they know what it is? They have to then apply or rely on the prior year taxes, which would be 2020 tax return if filed, 2019 if the 2020 had not been filed. So all they need then to make the projection, you would think, would be the number of dependents that were on the prior year tax return, and then that's basically what they're, and their information, including their age and so on. And that would basically be the information you would think that they would need. They'd also need to know where to send the check out to, electronically or by mail and so on. And then they can estimate what the credit will be. Now, obviously, there's going to be problems with this that we've seen because they've made this same kind of effort when they talked about the stimulus payments were given out in a similar way. It was an advanced kind of payment. You have a similar kind of advanced situation when you look at the health insurance premiums if you're in the marketplace and so on. So they've been kind of experimenting with this advanced concept to get money out sooner. So they're getting better at it, but you have the typical kind of problems. That is, well, what if the prior tax return wasn't filled out properly, meaning you have a different number of dependents in 2020 than you're going to have in 2021? Then you would think the advance payments would not be accurate possibly. What if you move or something like that? How do you change where they're going to be sending the payments to? Because you need to update your information to get the advance payments in this kind of monthly kind of step up. And what if you have an issue where your income level has increased? So there's this phase out of how much you would get for the advanced child tax credit and so on. And then also just simply tracking these advance payments so that you can file the tax return in 2022, which adds a level of complexity because you actually have to calculate the credit and then figure out how much you got prepaid, subtract the two to think about what your benefit will be at the point in time you file the tax return. And the thing they're addressing this time is basically people that would qualify, but they don't normally file a tax return. Therefore, the IRS doesn't have their information, so they wouldn't know who to send out, and that's kind of who they're addressing at this point. All right, so back to the text. The IRS urges anyone who normally isn't required to file a tax return to explore the tools available on IRS.gov. The Eligibility Assistant can help determine eligibility for the advanced child tax credit. The non-filer sign-up tool can help people file a simplified tax return to sign up for these payments. So note that if someone is below the threshold to need to file a tax return with regards to their income level, in other words, some people are not required to file a tax return. Generally, if your income is below a certain threshold, you're not required to because you're not going to owe any taxes at that point in time. However, even if you're below that point, you might benefit from filing the tax return because they're using the tax code more and more as a benefit program these days. And so these kind of refundable credits like the child tax credit, the earned income tax credit are the two big ones, still might be benefits even if you're not required to file. So 2 questions to think about. 1, am I required to file? You might look that up and say, no, you're not, because possibly an income level is below the threshold to need to file. And then 2, well, even though I'm not required, would it be beneficial for me to file? And oftentimes it would be, especially if you have a dependent child, because you might get a child tax credit in this case, and you might get the advance payments of it, and you might qualify for the earned income tax credit. And so oftentimes it would be worthwhile to take a look at for many people in that situation. And you can basically get access to free software. I believe you still can at this point for tax year 2020. If your income is below the threshold, you can look up on the IRS website the free filing options there. And so you might be able to test out to see whether or not it would be beneficial to file with software that would be free. I would think that would be the best way to go, because that way you get to see if you get access to all the benefits, which would include the child tax credit and include the earned income tax credit. However, you have to file a tax return, which can be a little bit more complex. They also have this non-filer sign-up tool. This was the tool that they used when they were giving out the economic stimulus payments for people that were below the threshold and they didn't need to file to just get the minimum information to get these stimulus payments out. They've altered it now so that it can be also used for these child tax credit payments. Although I don't believe that if you use this tool, it will help you to determine whether or not you would qualify for something like the earned income tax credit. So it's probably an easier thing to do to file the non-filer sign-up tool, but it might not give you as much of a benefits as you may be able to, or at least to check in on them if you actually file an actual tax return, which again, you still have access to the software, I believe, for free from third-party providers, which you can look up on the IRS website. Okay, so that's the general recap. So some non-filers may also be eligible for the $1,400 per person economic impact payments and the recovery rebate credit. People can get these benefits even if they don't work, have no income, or don't have a permanent address. For these families, each advanced CTC child tax credit payment is up to $300 per month for each qualifying child under age 6 and up to $250 per child each month for ages 6 through 17. So you can think about these payments in 2 different ways. You could think about them in terms of what the full child tax credit would be when filing the tax return by April 15th of 2022 for tax year 2021. And you can think about it as how much would the monthly amounts be if they were to be distributed out. So in other words, they increase the credit on the tax return. So if you were to file the tax return and not have the prepayments, then you would have a larger amount. I believe it was $2,000 before this per child, for example. It would be larger than that in 2000 for tax year 2021. And then basically they took half of that, whatever your credit is, and they basically distribute it over the year. And then they had this 2-tier kind of thing with the age groups, and that's where you get this 2-tier, the $300 per month and the $250. So they said $300 per month for each qualifying child under age 6, and up to $250 per month for each child ages 6 through 17. So payments are generally issued on the 15th of each month through December 2021. Here are more details and information about how to get the payments. The IRS sends advanced child tax credit payments to eligible families who filed a 2019 or 2020 income tax return. This includes people who successfully use the non-filer sign-up tool for advanced CTC child tax credits available only on IRS.gov. People can access the non-filer sign-up tool or the step-by-step guide for using it on IRS.gov. There's also a link to that here. Aside from filing a simplified return from the non-filer sign-up tool, families don't have to do anything else if they are eligible to receive monthly payments. The non-filer sign-up tool is available until October 15, 2021. Using the tool by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time on any month's deadline will apply to the next month's payment. Families who receive their first monthly payment in any month after July will still receive their total advance payment for the year. This means that a total payment will be spread over fewer months rather than 6 months, making each monthly payment larger. So in other words, if you start the payments later your question would be, well, if you took half the payments and then you allocated them over 6 months of 2021, what happens if I don't get the payments until later and I missed the first couple payments because I didn't sign up quite yet? Well, you would think you'd still get half the payments and they would kind of allocate them over the remaining months, which would mean that you'd have larger payments over those remaining months, you would think. So the IRS encourages people to request payments by direct deposit, which is faster and more secure than other payment methods. People who don't have a bank account should visit the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. There's a link to that here. Website for details on ongoing account online. They can also use the FDIC's Bank Find. There's a link to Bank Find tool to locate the FDIC insured bank. Finally, there's all these other links that you can go to if you want to. There's Bank On. There's the American Bankers Association, Independent Community Bankers of America, and the National Credit Unions Administration have a list of banks and credit unions that can open an account online. There's also a Veterans Can See the Veterans Benefit Banking Program. There's a link to that for financial services at participating banks. So there's links to all that wonderful stuff here, and there'll be a link to this in the description.